Puro boya o chiché. Saludo fraternal en la religión lucumí. H, mucho H, suerte y salud para todos mis hermanos. Las 7 potencias, el lengua, Ogun Arere, Ochosi, Inle, Oricha Oco, Daba, Oba, Yegua, Babalúa Ye, San Lázaro, Yemaya, la reina de los mares, Changó, Changó Loriza, Ochun, Santísima Virgen de la Caridad, Obatalá, la dueña de todas las cabezas locas. Puro boya, las 7 potencias es solamente para combatir odio y envidia. H, mucho H, puro boya o chiché.
That was the first movement from Macho, a track on the album Fireworks by Machito, produced by Harvey Averne. We had a long conversation with Harvey about this album, and excerpts follow.
Machito was an artist that came from Cuba. He was very important in Cuba also. His brother-in-law was Mario Balsa. His sister was Graciela. She sang with the band. Mario was the musical director of the band. And I was speaking about in New York. So they were very, very important. In fact, the bridge between Dizzy Gillespie and Latin music, that came from Mario Balsa was the bridge. Okay,
Gotcha.
And the Machito band was one of the most important recordings in Latin jazz. Manteca with Machito's band, with Dizzy, Chano Pozo. They were true Latin jazz. Dizzy fell in love with Latin music. Because Fireworks was a changing point in the Machito band's history. Mario Bausa, his brother-in-law, and his sister Graciela had left. They broke up. Right there. They broke up. And Machito came to see me in my office with his son. At that age, all of a sudden, his co-singer, Graciela, his sister, and the musical director, Mario Bausa, were gone. Okay? So he comes up to my office, and he said, Harvey, I'm coming to you for a few reasons. Number one, I like what you did with Cortijo, the original albums, not the Latin jazz album. We're talking about the regular. I did about 4 albums with Cortijo.
Okay.
And I like what you did with Jose Fajardo. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? You don't like the rest of my music? And I said, no, I love everything. I know, but he said, what I like was you updated it, but the respect and the reverence and who they are is still there. I still can hear Jose Fajardo. I still can hear Cortijo. And I hear what you did. It's many years later, and I like it. The balance is perfect, and that's why I come to you. And I said, well, I got all the hard ones. I told Machito, thank you. It'd be an honor for me to work with you. But I got Eddie Palmieri, who nobody could keep in the studio. And so I was famous for that already. I said, this is going to be a tough one, Machito, because the world's going to be looking at it. This is the first album without Mario, without Graciela. The spotlight's going to be on this. There can be no missteps. I feel the pressure. I, not being Latino, have always felt that pressure in everything I did. I'm sure that made me more careful and more studied and more into what I was going to do, because I was going to be looked at 2 ways you could look at it. Hey, this guy really knows our music. He's just a visitor. So I always felt that pressure. And I was always surrounding myself with guys that I could learn from. I was learning with a lot of the artists that influenced me when I was coming up. When I mean, as long as they could still perform, I had interest in them. And the record business is very harsh when you get older.
Yeah.
The record business is, me coming up, it had expressions like, well, if you're older than 22, it just won't do, and a lot of stupid stuff like that. Actually, the Latin business is a little better with that. We hold on to our stuff a lot longer than rock and roll does, as I'm sure you've noticed.
So Machito would have been around 69, 70. And you had mentioned that this was sort of a high-stakes project because everyone was going to be watching.
Of course. It was the first album without Mario Graciela. This was big. The Machito I only did 1 album with Machito because my company was on the way down already. So that's this. So Machito was aware of all of this stuff. And he said, do whatever you want to do with me. I trust you. His son is a timbale player. I never heard his son play, Ken. And I told him, I thought about it right on the spot. I was sharp when I was younger. And I said, listen, here's what I have to tell you. It would be an honor for me to do this album with you, okay? Without doubt. And I think we could do a great one because you're really the most respected man of all, and we can really do something. And I told him, I said, here's what I think we need to do. First of all, Eddie and Lalo are not working together anymore. They only worked together for 1.5 albums. I said, Lalo, I have Lalo signed. I'd like to replace Graciela with Lalo. Lalo now has 2 Palmieri albums under his belt. He's an experienced kid at 18 or 19. And I don't want to replace Graciela with another woman. I want to replace her with a guy. The least comparisons possible. And I want to replace him with a young guy. Okay? Because I want that younger audience. Machito had his audience. And Machito, I said, I want you to be more involved in this than you were with Mario. I know you like to write some songs, stories, whatever. This is a Machito album. I did that with all of them. And they always came through. They really came through for me with that, in that regard. And then I said, okay, now let's get to the difficult part. The son's Mario also. I said, Mario, I never heard you play. You could be the best drummer in the world. But you know something? For the album that I'm thinking about, I don't know how to tell you this. I want to use my guys, my network, my inner group. Victor Paz, Barry Rogers, Andy, and Mickey Madero. Johnny Rodriguez on conga, and he's a bongo player. But Johnny, I knew, was a great big band conga player. Johnny Dandy Rodriguez is really having a pretty good time now, being that he was Tito Puente's contractor and also was bongocero, and his father was very well known. So he was very well educated in how to play properly, big band, small band. Barry and I decided to use him. Remember I told you Barry was going to contract this with me? So the brass and stuff. And I said, how do you feel about that? And I said, and the reason is I need all the security I can get going. And said, and Nicky plays with the bass drum. Most of my police don't do that. And I hear Eddie's 2 albums, we using timbales with the bass drum for the crashes and the breaks. And I like that. It's thunder. With the bass drum, it's boom. Without the bass drum, we're talking about a Latin jazz album now. I need the foot, man. And I need a guy that knows where I like the foot.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of this. And they looked at each other and they said, okay. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I was telling the son that he can't play in his own band. I mean, who's got balls to do that? Only me.
Yeah.
But you know what? I can't. It was like they were my security blankets. You know what I mean? This was such a big undertaking that if I couldn't feel that I really had the rock, the rhythm rock under me, I was going to let it go. It had to be agreeable, and it had to be the way we were all comfortable. They were good. And I'll tell you what, I learned later on, Machito's son he's a hell of a tamale player.
Uh-huh.
I'm surprised they gave it up that easy. It just was okay. Whatever it seemed to be, whatever I wanted was okay.
Cuando llegué de La Habana, con salsa traje un caldero y con mi salsa cubana lo convertí en salsero.
Salsa somos salseros, reconocidos en el mundo entero. Salsa somos salseros, reconocidos en el mundo entero.
Que contengo fui el primero, fue Machito el pionero, introdujo el manicero y conquistó al mundo entero.
There was no orchestra. The orchestra broke up, and there was no Mario Balsa orchestra either. They both made new bands.
Wow.
You know, everybody made a new band, and some of the guys were from one band, some of the guys went with the other one. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
There was Nicky, Chucky, Charlie was of equal importance, and Johnny Dandy Rodriguez, and Andy Gonzalez. That's the core four. Chucky Lopez was very young, great bongo player, son of Tommy Lopez, who was a very famous bongo player with Eddie and with many of the big bands. Andy Gonzalez, my dear friend, was definitely in the core of Eddie Palmieri and my band and a whole lot of bands. Andy is one of the best bass players. With the rhythm section of Nicky Marrero on timbales, Andy on bass, Johnny Dandy Rodriguez on conga, Chucky Lopez on bongos and bell, and Charlie Palmieri on piano. I was a brave guy. I had my army. We didn't rehearse. We weren't going to rehearse because I wanted a level of musician. I wanted a studio level of musician that was a great jazz player, especially when it came to the saxes and the trumpets and the bones and all of that. You know what I mean? I was very good with my rhythm sections. And that's where Barry came in, because Barry was playing with Dave Sanborn. Barry Rogers was playing with Dave Sanborn from the guys from Saturday Night Live and what have you. So he had a foot in that, and he had a foot in the jazz thing. And he was a monster in the Latin thing. So he was the guy. We sat down, we scoped it out. We agreed quickly on the rhythm section thing. The only thing we discussed a little bit was the conga, because I thought it would be a good idea to use Dandy. And Barry said, you know what? He knew the father, because Barry was really, for a gringo, he was very, even for Latino. And Barry was a really world music player. You know, he was a gift. He died at 50. Never did drugs, never drank.
Oh.
Skinny.
Mm.
Not overweight, and he passed at 50. I couldn't believe it. Oh, Charlie Palmieri on piano, by the way. Charlie on piano. Because Charlie was the concert pianist. Eddie Palmieri always said in interviews that, I'm a piano player, my brother's a pianist.
Mm-hmm.
So Charlie played a lot with Tito Puente. Charlie played with all of them. You know, he was a concert virtuoso. I used Rene Hernandez was gone, unfortunately, who really did most of the arranging on 2 Eddie albums, and he really was a Machito alumni, Machito and Tito Rodriguez. I would have loved to have him there, but he was gone. He passed. But I used Ray Santos. Ray did 2 songs for me, and then I used a guy named Jorge Milet, who never really had the chance, great arranger out of Puerto Rico, but never had the chance to work with the level of New York big band that he would love to. I gave him a chance. He came through for me big. He did Macho, and he's playing electric keyboard on that. And he did a couple of them, but Ray did the 2 singles that were important. Desilusion was a ballad written by Lalo, and Ray did that arrangement. That was a bolero. And he did his song, Mi Primo Llegó.
Llegó lo que tú querías, bailador. Llegó. Un ritmo sabroso es lo que pedía y eso traje yo.
salsa explosion was young bands playing for young kids.
Mm-hmm.
And for the most part, playing for second generation Latinos or Puerto Ricans specifically, that many of them didn't even have good Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
That's why some of the music was in English, and some of the lyrics accommodated that. Because they were born in America, you know what I mean? So, and they were born in El Barrio, they were born in the Bronx, they were born in Spanish Harlem. Salsa music was talking to them about, it was their story. It was their life, because number one, at home, mom and dad is talking Spanish, okay, for the most part. And if mom and dad is learning English, they're probably learning more for their kids, from their kids, okay? And the kids are learning. Now, the kids are going to American schools that were not easy because you had to speak English in those American schools, okay? They're going to school in the Bronx, they're going to school in New York school. And the push was for them to learn English, which they did, but then they weren't able to speak Spanish. They were in a hard spot. So the stories, the hardships of growing up in a bilingual culture with problems with the language, that's what salsa's all about. They're not treated like Americans to this day. You know that.
Oh, yeah.
And they're American citizens, just like you and me.
Yeah.
I worked with a lot of independentistas. Danny Rivera was an independentista in Puerto Rico, very political, much more political than I was and then I think we were in the States. And then we have Lucecita Benitez. So I worked with a lot of independentistas. And I was hearing it from two sides. Some people wanted Puerto Rico to become statehood. The independentistas wanted to be cut loose and be on their own. And then there was most of the people thought they were better off being just the way it was. Stay a Commonwealth, the best of both worlds. I kind of thought that too, without really investigating it. Now, since Maria and Hurricane Maria and seeing how they're being treated, but now that I learned as I gotten older, whatever, I understand that. We've been giving them the share for 100 years.
Oh, yeah.
Time for us to let them go or make them a state and stop it already. It's enough. Machito's day job was working at some kind of a public thing, like they're doing good for people in the neighborhood. He was some kind of city job.
Like a social services job?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I don't know exactly what. So he was a very socially conscious guy, and I'm very respectful. Despierta Boricua was Wake Up Puerto Ricans.
Nuestra gran Luisa Quintero recalca en su marginalia. Nuestra gran Luisa Quintero recalca en su marginalia. Ayudar a tus hermanos, ese bien no es represalia. Esa tierra tan bendita que todos queremos tanto, esa tierra tan bendita que todos queremos tanto, el corazón no palpita porque es bella, es un encanto. Despierta, boricua, mira que el tiempo es dinero. Anda, despierta, boricua, mira que llegaste primero. Quiero que sepa mi hermano que yo como soy cubano. Quiero que sepa mi hermano que yo como soy cubano. A todo buen boricano siempre le daré la mano.
And those songs did very well. The Machito songs were very well received. It could have easily been slanted to a Lalo. It wasn't. You know, it was the balance I needed. See, it was easy to give it to the young guy who just came off 2 Grammy-winning albums. I didn't want to do that. That was not what he came to me for. He came to me for respect, and that's what he got. In my head, when I worked with these older guys, I wasn't going to get rich. I wasn't even really looking to make money, to be perfectly honest. I just didn't want to lose money, and I wanted to help their career, and I wanted to have some of their records in my catalog. Mm-hmm. I was making my money with Palmieri and with Edie Gourmet and Danny Rivera. I mean, you always want to make money, but that wasn't the main course here. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was a common thread in all of these records we're talking about. It really wasn't so much about money. I didn't want to lose money. I didn't want to leave them in the same position I found them.
Gotcha.
I wanted to raise them. Now I have my band. I know it's going to be. I know what kind of musicianship it is, and I'm thinking that I'm going to do it without rehearsal. I'm going to go in like I do Harvey Averne records, and we run it down once and twice, and we do it. Except my band was just a couple of brass. This is really a big band, you know. Mm-hmm. And of course, I never all of my Harvey Averne records. There's no rehearsal. Very top quality studio musician in the studio. Run it down once, run it down twice, and let's start recording it. Okay, with the great ones, you can do that. Mm-hmm. Okay. In fact, if you play too many times, they get bored of it by about 6 or 7 times. They don't want to do it anymore.
Right.
You know,
yep.
From the jazz world, really great names on Machito's album. So I decided that's the way I'm going to do it, of course. And I give out the arrangements and everything's going now. I've got to find a studio. So to record this whole band. And somebody told me it's a big studio in Radio City. So I go to Radio City and they tell me the studio's on the 6th floor. And or whatever it was, you know, and I go upstairs and I notice on the 6th floor there's a recording studio, and also there's the other side of the floor is the Rockettes rehearse up there.
Okay.
I like that. I like that idea too. I knew that would go over pretty good with the guys. We took a lot of short breaks. Every time we got something good done, I said, okay, guys, 5 minutes. Everybody would run and watch the Rockettes and come back in tubes. Okay? Okay. I didn't make my point about that. I mentioned it, but I didn't make my point. So that was great.
So in the secret of Fireworks is it was fueled by the Rockettes.
Yeah, okay. There's some of that Fireworks came with the Rockettes. I go in and I'm looking at the room and it's Ken. I never was in a recording studio like that. The richest looking wood. I mean, and the guy's telling me the story when he's touring me. He says, this was created for Toscanini to do his live radio broadcasts. Okay? And this was in the days of one microphone. And, you know, there was no track. If you wanted more trumpet, the guy had to move his chair closer to the mic. There was one mic in the middle of all of that. So, and they spent $2 million, he said, of that money, of that era, on the acoustics in that room.
Wow.
So now I'm looking at the room and I'm saying, I believe it. I'm looking, I say, I believe it. And I'm thinking, geez, and I hate live recordings. I told you about Cortillo. You know, the big bands especially, you know, there's so much could happen and you're screwed, you know. But I said, listen, with this level of musician, I'm using Machito's name. If this was good enough for Toscanini with one track and I've got 24 or 48, come on, Harvey, you can do this. I'm so happy I did that. And I couldn't mix there. I had to get added in the mix. I couldn't mix. I tried to mix. It was horrible, but the sound I got in that band and that big orchestra, that's as rich as that band ever sounded. It's Machito's favorite album. Oh. Again, that's a big honor, right? His son told me, Mario told me, he said, come on, Harvey, let's do Fireworks too. it was beautiful. It was beautiful. What it was a labor of love. All the guys were so into it, and the sound is so rich. I mean, I love that. It's probably my favorite Seltzer album.